everybody to the Single and Stilettos show. Today we have as our guest Jonathan Aslay. He is a dating and relationship coach, and he lives in California, and he's joining us today from sunny California. Welcome, Jonathan, to the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with you, Suzanne. This is fantastic.
I know, this is so great. And today we're going to talk about a topic that every woman wants to know is when should she sleep with a guy? So I know. And we want to hear it from a male perspective. But before we get into that, I want to hear how you became a dating and relationship coach for women.
Wait, now how long do we have for this show?
Well, I'm going to limit it to a quick 30 to 60 second bio.
Real quick, how I became a dating relationship coach was after going through a divorce and turning 40, I found myself out there single and dating, having no clue what it was like to date, especially online. And what happened was I literally got addicted to online dating. I became a serial dater. One date after another after another. My first year, I went out with over 100 women.
Oh my God.
And I know. Can you believe it? And in the course of, now I'm totally in love right now, so I just want to own that.
Okay.
But in that course, I started to have conversations with women, listening to their stories, and I became fascinated with relationships, what makes some work and why others fail. And in all these conversations, pretty soon women used to call me up and ask advice. Jonathan, I've got this date with this guy on Match.com. Will you check out his profile and tell me what you think? So I check out his profile, give my feedback. They go, he's nothing like you described, Jonathan. I said, go on the date and tell me what happens. They go on the date. The date would end, car door would close, frantic text message in bold letters. Can you talk? I get on the phone. They said, he was exactly the way you described. So, Suzanne, I kind of had a knack for profiling guys. And pretty soon I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of being an insurance broker. Let me become a dating coach because women seem to love my advice. And all of a sudden, I threw up a website, wrote a couple books, and my career has taken off ever since.
That is so funny that you went from insurance to dating. That's a switch. So that's a great story. So I love it. And, you know, it's always great, I think, for women to hear a man's perspective. So let's get right into it. So when is the right time for a woman to sleep with a guy when she starts dating him?
Well, from the guy's perspective, it's on the first date.
In the first hour, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why even have a date? Let's just go straight to the bedroom. This is a really important question. And I think let's just start off by saying this is a personal choice, okay? This is personal choice. There is no rule that works for one person versus another person. I have known people who have had sex on the first date who have been in happy marriages, that are over 10, 15 years old. I actually know of stories like that.
Wow.
I also know a lot of stories where a woman's had a first date and never seen a guy ever again. So when is the right time to have sex? Let's start off with what's the right time for you. And if you have a habit of getting really attached to a guy and you've had a history of sleeping with men fairly early and not hearing from them again, ask yourself what's going on inside. Because I want to tell you what's going on from the male perspective. So how about we do that first?
Yeah,
let's talk about what a guy's thinking when it comes to sex. Okay?
I know my audience wants to know what men are thinking.
Okay.
So tell us.
Okay. So let's take a look at the men in his 20s and 30s. These are men highly, driven by testosterone. Okay, you know that. Right. You've heard about it. There's commercials about it. In fact, older men have to get replacement for testosterone. This is what gives us our vigor, our vibe. This is what drives us to climb mountains and jump out of airplanes and things, and also to have sex.
Right.
And so in the early stages of dating, we are driven by testosterone and another chemical called dopamine, which is like crack cocaine. Now, some people call it love at first sight. Okay? That's where you feel like you intensely know somebody.
Right.
But what's really happening is it's brain chemicals firing off and telling us that we want to have, from a male perspective, we want to have sex with this woman.
Right.
So from our objective, we want to have sex. Believe me, men don't walk around going, I want a relationship, I want a relationship, I want to get committed, and I want to get married. We don't grow up thinking that way. Okay?
You don't?
No, we don't. Of course, men do want companionship, attention, affection, appreciation, and regular sex. But we don't come from it at the destination as the goal, okay? Our goal is really, for the most part, our goal is to get intimate with you as soon as possible.
Right.
Now, so here's the deal. With that said, oftentimes a way to a man's heart is through his penis. Okay? It does start that way, but that's not a guarantee.
Right.
Okay? So when is the right time to have sex? I think the real question is, if you're a woman who seriously wants a relationship, then your job is to determine whether or not this guy is looking to get laid or he's looking for a potential partner. A potential partner. Because you could be dating someone for 3 months going, you know what, we're not a really good fit.
Right.
Okay? Now, he might be thinking that in his mind and he ends the relationship and you're hooked because what happens with women is a different chemical called oxytocin.
Right.
And that's what happens when you have sex with a man. You bond with this guy.
Right.
So you might be bonded to a man who you don't even like, okay? That doesn't fit your profile, but you had sex with him, and now you're addicted to him like crack cocaine.
It's true.
And he dishes out crumbs. He doesn't call you. He calls you only for booty calls and this and that. But you're like, but I want to be in a relationship with him. And I'm like, but the guy's out of work living in his mother's basement, okay? Now, There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, ask yourself, is this a really good candidate for a long-term partnership?
Well, I'm glad,
So,
I'm glad you brought up about trying to figure out whether a guy's looking for a long-term relationship or if he's just looking for sex. So tell us some of the signs that women should look out for that tell her that a guy's just looking for sex and he's not looking for a long-term relationship. Can you tell us like 3 signs?
Let me just give you a couple things to think about, and then we'll kind of come up with some signs here.
Okay.
I think first thing is beware of intense chemistry early on, okay? You know, I often say chemistry kills, okay? If the chemistry is so intense on a first date, and his motives are more to get you in bed,
right,
than to get to know you in a friendship capacity, that's probably the greatest sign you need to be aware of.
Right.
I think the other thing is, let's go back to the 3-date rule, okay? For the most part, if a guy is only looking for sex, chances are you're rarely ever going to make it past the first, second, or maybe third date, okay? I mean, most guys, if they're strictly interested in sex only, they barely make it past the third date.
Right.
Okay? I mean, will they go 4 dates and see what happens? Sure. But understand this. Once he's had sex, that's no guarantee he wants a committed relationship with you. If he's satisfied that need for sex and he realizes, well, you know, I don't like this about you, or I don't like this, or I don't think we're a good fit in this, you know, all these things that were going on in the back of his mind while he was talking to you, it's also registering whether or not you're a potential mate for him.
Right.
So let me tell you how men who are serious respond.
Okay.
First off, they treat you with respect. That's one of the first things. They genuinely take time to get to know you as a person in the dating process. They want to know about your life. They want to know even sometimes they want to know about past relationships, what you're currently doing professionally, how's your relationship with your family and friends. All of these cues are starting to register as to whether or not you're a potential long-term mate.
Right.
Okay? So that's kind of the difference between, they don't have believe me, guys want to have sex, but men who are serious, that's not their agenda to get you in the bedroom. Their agenda is to get to know you.
I agree. And I think also, this is what I tell my clients too, is also watch how a man handles when you say that you're not ready to have sex, right? The guy who pouts and, you know, still tries is probably the guy that's still not serious about having a serious relationship, right?
Well, just beware of saying that, because that's an instant turnoff too. And a couple other things could be going on in his mind. He might be thinking, is she putting me in the friend zone? You know, so
the dreaded friend zone.
Exactly. So, you know, be careful. I mean, I agree. What you're doing is, in a way, I don't want to say this is a job interview, but this guy should be interviewing for the job of your boyfriend.
Right.
Okay? And what I mean by interviewing is you have to determine whether or not this is some guy you'd like to potentially go past a third or fourth date. I have something called the 10-date rule. And the 10-date rule is this. For the most part, I recommend not sleeping with a guy for the first 3 dates for sure. And if he asks you out for a fourth or fifth date, chances are he seriously wants to get to know you. Maybe he's taking you to the movies. Maybe you've gone out to dinner. Maybe he's even introduced you to some friends. A couple clues like that tells you he's looking for something more than sex.
Okay.
Somewhere between the 6th and 10th date, chances are you're going to have sex, okay?
Right.
And in that, if you've reached 10 dates, you've had sex maybe once or twice, and he still wants to see you, you're going to be in a relationship by the 10th date. Chances are you're going to want exclusivity, okay? Mm-hmm. You want exclusivity because you want to know he's not sleeping around, and he wants exclusivity because he wants to know he's got you all to himself.
Right.
Now, mind you, these 10 dates usually happen within about a 6-week period of time, okay? I'm not talking about 10 dates that last 2 years, okay? Especially long distance.
That's a long-term relationship in and of itself, right?
I can't tell you how many people are in long distance relationships that have only seen the men 3 times in 2 years.
God. That's a whole nother issue.
Exactly. So, but, sex is how a man's going to eventually turn into, a relationship is going to turn into commitment.
Right.
I mean, guys don't. Here's the thing. I have a thread going on my private Facebook group, and all the women insist that they need commitment before sex. And I'm like, okay, really? So if a guy tells you, well, we're fully committed, I want to marry you, are you going to really take that seriously? I mean, what is commitment? I think commitment happens over a period of time. It starts with exclusivity in sex and monogamy. It starts by maybe leaving your toothbrush at his place or vice versa, or maybe having a sock drawer at each other's place. It starts being you're introduced to family and friends. You're being invited to the company Christmas party. Those are all signs of commitment. Maybe even having a key to their place. That's another level of commitment. Ain't going to happen in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 dates.
Right. No, exactly. And that's true. And I think a good point to bring up too is, how does the guy act in between dates? Is he still contacting you, or is it like he disappears for a couple weeks and then all of a sudden he reappears? Isn't that a good point?
I think that's a great example. I mean, if he's making regular contact in between dates. Now, look, if he doesn't call for 1 or 2 days, you don't fly off the handle. You don't think that he's sleeping with someone else or he hates you or anything like that. He could just be busy, okay?
I know. Let's emphasize that point, because women tend to do that. We get it all in our head like, oh my God, something's happening. He's dating somebody else. He's dating a million women. He's not interested anymore. And then he contacts them. Like,
I wrote a blog called he hasn't texted in 5 hours. He hasn't texted in 5 hours. This is what happens. Either A, he doesn't want me anymore. B, he's in a car ditch. C, he's seeing someone else. It's like, come on.
Isn't that funny that women do that? They go through their head of all these scenarios.
Well, actually, and there is a reason for that. And it would take too long to get into in this conversation. But it relates to our attachment styles that happen very early on. And there's 3 attachment styles. I'll just say it real quick. There's the avoidant, sometimes known as emotionally distant.
Right.
There's the anxious, sometimes known as clingy or needy. And then there's the secure, that, hey, look, 5 hours has gone by. It's no big deal. They're not dating someone else. I'm okay because I love myself, and I'm going to be okay if this relationship doesn't work out.
Right.
So there's anxious, avoidant, and secure. And if you know your attachment style, if you happen to be anxious, and if you just being aware of it, it's time to check in and say, hey, I don't need to jump off the 10,000-foot cliff, because I haven't heard from him in a few hours, few days. Mm-hmm. A guy, this is what keeps guys in. How about we just talk about that?
Okay, yeah.
Ultimately, they have fun with you. If the relationship is fun and he's happy, he's going to want to see you again, okay? He feels an emotional connection with you that goes beyond sexual. That's another reason why a guy will stay in. And I think one of probably the number one reason why a man will stay in a relationship, he feels accepted for who he is.
I love that you told women this. This is so important because they don't realize that.
Oh my God, we have more insecurities than can light a Christmas tree. Okay, trust me on this one. And in many ways, we put on this facade because we have to be the masculine. Okay, the guys with the muscles, and in that we have lots of insecurities. I know we talk about how men are confident, are the most attractive,
Right.
but underneath it, we're a lot of scared boys. Okay, and so when you can accept a man, especially in his own shame,
Right.
and it could be that he's struggling financially, it could be he's maybe looking for work, it could be that he has an ex-spouse that's driving him nuts. Whatever is going on in his life,
Right.
if he feels accepted, chances are he's going to be more interested in you.
Great.
As opposed to being judged.
Thanks for giving the ladies that tip. I think that's so important, and I think just a lot of women don't realize that. Well, I love all the advice you gave us today, so I'm going to ask you one last question. Give us your best dating tip for women.
Oh my gosh, my best dating tip. I think, all right, I had one thing in mind, but I'm going to share another.
Okay.
I think if a lot of women are very jaded and bitter when it comes to men, or their belief system is that there are no good men out there. Okay?
Yes, I hear that all the time from my clients.
So it's either they're jaded and bitter or there's no good men out there. So I want you to start saying, I love men. I love men in all shapes and sizes. I don't care if the guy who's got the big pot belly, who's got the hat on backwards, emails me on Match.com. I'm going to love him for who he is. I'm going to have compassion, appreciation, and gratitude. And the minute you start to embody this concept of just loving men for who they are, I guarantee you're going to have a flock of men just energetically coming to you. And the guy who's looking for you, the guy who wants to be with you, he's going to be knocking on your doorstep because you come to the table loving men for who they are, and you've let go of that limiting belief that there are no good men out there or all men are bad.
I love that tip. I think that's such a great tip because you're absolutely right. Some women do say that, and sometimes, you have to change the way you think. So
you change the way you think, everything else will start to change.
It's true. It's very true. So how can the ladies find you?
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully don't go knocking on my door. But
I know. Don't stalk him, please.
Yes, please. My girlfriend will be very upset. No, actually, you can find me at understandmennow.com. Understand Men Now. And the emphasis on the now. Okay, I'm going to help you understand men. And in my website, you can get my 3 heartbreaking mistakes women make in relationships. I offer weekly tips on understanding men. I do regular seminars and workshops. I even do private coaching. I've got a blog that gets tons of visits every day, and also on Facebook. Oh my God, my Facebook page just blows up every day with comments. So again, you can find me at understandmennow.com and get that free gift, the 3 heartbreaking mistakes women make in relationships.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much, Jonathan, for being on the show. And thanks, everybody, for joining us on the Single and Stilettos show. We do this show once a week. So if you'd like to see our next show, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're listening on our podcast, you can go to singleandstilettos.com. And if you'd like to get our free report on the top 10 secrets on what attracts a man and what turns him off, you can go to singleandstilettos.com or you can click right here on the video. Thanks so much.